So, am I recording? I'm recording! Yay! We are recording! We are recording! Okay, so I'm going to put my handy dandy glasses on so that I can see what I've written. Okay, so today I can't see with them and I can't see without them. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about something that is really, really important, and it's called From Meanness to Sweetness, or you might want to call it something like From Venomous to Vulnerable. And it's going to be kind of directed definitely to the highly sensitive person, but a lot of times we think that highly sensitive people are always empathic and kind and sweet, and they're always the one that's getting crushed under the load. They're always the one that needs to be defended and needs a hero to come along and protect them, you know? That's not always the case. Being highly sensitive doesn't necessarily mean you're weak. It can mean you're very, very strong. But let's just check into this. Okay, after that short little intermission, we're going to get into this. Now, so I have done quite a bit of studying on the highly sensitive person, and you know, it crosses a lot of boundaries. So you can have a highly sensitive person, as I have said before, that's neurodivergent, which would take in all of your, like, autistics, ADHD, your brain just works a little bit different than, you know, the normal person out there. It can take in a neurotypical person, and they are, as I've said before, they tend to just be very, very sensitive to loud noises, sights, sounds, behaviors like chewing of food. These people, they can be highly sensitive over a lot of things. They can even be highly sensitive over, like, you know, their emotions. Just because they're neurodivergent doesn't mean that they're not highly sensitive, like easily upset, easily offended, blah, 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 you know. But they tend to not have social issues. They tend to be able to go and work a job without any kind of, like, social issues. They probably had a lot of friends, you know. So being highly sensitive crosses a lot of borders. But as in all my videos and for this channel, I'm focusing on mostly neurodivergent, highly sensitive people. Now, there's another way that being a highly sensitive person crosses borders. And as I spoke before, a lot of highly sensitive people are, like, timid, shy, they're non-confrontational. They will jump behind anybody that will protect them. They always feel like they need a protector. This is not every case, and this is not, you know, anybody or anything specific, but then there are highly sensitive people that essentially, to protect themselves, because some of them may not have, you know, that knight in shining armor that comes along to protect them. So they have to kind of learn to protect themselves. There are, like, so many different ways that a highly sensitive person will choose to protect themselves. You may become agoraphobic. You may become an introvert. You may be a hermit. You may be somebody that always stays in the background, lets everybody else do the speaking, so you're not messing up. You may be that person that's just right out there in the front wanting to control every scenario. A lot of times people that are very, very controlling and have this anxiety element in their life, they can be very outspoken and speak out of turn. But sometimes highly sensitive people can be somewhat aggressive and grouchy and have lots of condemnation for people around them. So we're going to just talk about what happens if you have created a facade of mean girl or bad girl or bully, or if you have taken on this controlling demeanor to protect yourself from being hurt, being abandoned, being insulted. A lot, and this includes me, I've had very little protectors. And so I have had to, well, I won't say I have had to. I didn't have to. God will always protect you. But I took on the controlling, strong-willed, don't cross my line attitude in a lot of instances because I saw I was going to be hurt, I was going to be taken advantage of, or I had already been taken advantage of, or I was being treated unfairly or whatever. So instead of being that, that meek underdog type person, I was that don't cross my line person. Now, I have spoke about it in the last some of my videos. I have chosen not to be that way anymore. But this requires vulnerability. It requires trust. And that's not always easy to do when you've been trampled underfoot by a lot of different people. So, we're going to talk about that. That's what we're going to talk about. So, if you have become aware of this, and you are tired of constantly putting up a tough exterior, and as I am, you want to I am an incredibly loving, sweet person. I just want to give everything to everybody. I just want to celebrate with everybody. And I am not a jealous person, so when somebody else gets the fine car or the trip to Europe, or they get to buy a fine house, I'm like, oh, that's so exciting, let me just share it with you, right? I just want to share it with you because I'm so happy for you. A lot of that kind of turned around and bit me in the butt because I hid it. I hid that because I didn't want to be seen as a prey. I didn't want the lions coming after the lamb, so to speak. So I created this whole facade of, if you need to know how to do it, just come to me, because I'll tell you how to do it. And then, well, you shouldn't have done it to me, and you should have come and asked me first, and, just all that negativity. Blech. And while I used to think people that were always sweet and lovey-dovey were just fake, almost everybody that come around that was really sweet, oh, how are you doing? Are you doing all right? How is your family? And they just say, because I've seen people that walk across the floor when the phone rings. I really wish that phone wouldn't ring, and I'm so tired of talking to people, and I don't like people when they go to the phone and they're like, hello, how are you today? And oh my gosh, I just really made up my mind I wasn't going to be fake, but I ended up being fake anyway because I created this mean facade. When actually, as I said before, it's worth repeating, when I got rid of the depression, I realized that this whole mean girl thing wasn't real. Well, I'm still working on it because awareness is only part of the job. Once you become aware that you need to make any kind of change in your life, awareness is only the beginning. The work to change your habits is where the real work comes in. So that's where I'm at. But anyway, let me get on with this. I've been trying to break down what causes us to do this. And I have talked to several people who I knew that they had early childhood trauma. They've had trauma through their life. And they would not open up. They could not be vulnerable with anybody. And they couldn't even share their abuses or their pain. And when you try to get them to open up, they say, oh, I could never do that. I could never be vulnerable. I could never open up to people. But you can. Before I get into how to go about some of the steps and how to go about doing this, I want to first talk about safeguards. You can't be sweet and vulnerable with anybody and everybody. No, I realize that. But here's what you do. Number one, you choose your tribe carefully. You want people that are going to accept you for who you are. And you want to include in your repertoire of friends those that you feel like you can trust your heart to. And it's hard to find people like that. You may only have one. You may not really have any, because a lot of us have a hard time finding friends, or keeping friends, or acquaintances, or even family. So, but just in case, most of us have one or two people in our lives, and choose them carefully. Now, if a person they have criticized you in the past, if they've hurt your feelings in the past, especially without love, all of us know the toxic people. So you don't want to cast your pearls before the swine. You don't want to be vulnerable and kind and sweet with people that you know are just going to rip you apart, So choose your tribe carefully. The second thing is, you are going to want to have boundaries with people that you know are going to hurt you. And those boundaries don't always have to be complete blockage. You don't have to ghost people, but there has to be boundaries. So say for instance, you may have to ghost somebody if they're violent, or they're just cruel, or you're just, not healed enough to handle it. But if you have partial boundaries, it may just be that when you talk to a person, you just say, okay, that's a territory I don't want to go. Now, this is something that Jamie and I are working on, because I am extremely sensitive to violence or anything that's not necessarily scary. I don't like demonic or spooky scary stuff. But I can't stand violence. I have to be very careful about watching the news, even or violence to animals, violence to children, violence to anybody, really. I'm just not good with that. And especially if it's like graphic. If you're starting to get into the whole massacre type thing, I'm just like, can't go there. And I know bad things happen. It's not necessarily like I'm hiding my head in the sand. I'm talking about boundaries here. But it upsets me, and then I may take an hour to kind of get my spirit calmed down. And so Jamie's always watching the news, and he watches a lot of stuff that mostly just news that's coming in around the country. But if he starts to tell me something that seems like it's going to upset me, I'll be like, nope, I don't want to hear it. I can't do this right now. So he's learned to respect that, and we're still working on that boundary, but I just can't do the negativity. It just hurts me too bad, if you know what I mean. So choose your tribe carefully. You want healthy boundaries. They don't have to be solid, but you got to have boundaries. If somebody has a tendency to speak really loud, and you just don't know, you just can't hardly stand it because they're just so loud, you may have to say, I'm willing to talk to you, but you're going to have to lower your volume, or don't go, somewhere. Now, the second thing is, if you have had somebody in your life that you love, and they you have clearly told them that they are hurting you. You've clearly told them that a lot of their behavior is negative, it's toxic, or whatever, and they just simply don't show any signs of remorse. They will not say they're sorry. They show no signs of being willing to do therapy or willing to improve their behavior at all. And they're just constantly, throwing up that defense. Well, you're just falsely accusing me, and who do you think you are? They have that attitude when you try to express to them how that their toxic behaviors hurt them. You don't want to open up to that person. Okay, so there are your safeguards. And now that we've talked about the safeguards, we're going to talk about how to learn to be vulnerable. Not everybody's going to have this situation, and I realize that. But let me reiterate, if you are a person that you love people, and you care about them so deeply, and you really only want to be with them, you really only want to share their life with them, to rejoice with them, you would like to, maybe you're like me, maybe you like to give gifts. You pick up some kind of little old knick-knack, at the Dollar Tree, and it's got a little meme on it, and you think, oh, that just suits so-and-so and so, and you're going to pay $1.25 for it, so, they may not keep it, they may throw it in the trash, they may laugh and, then give it to their son. It don't matter. But maybe you're just a person that you get joy out of it yourself. And you're a sweet person. You're a loving person. You're a caring person. But life has served you lemons. You've eaten so many pickles and lemons and sauerkraut and all of that old sour stuff until you have become bitter or mean or angry. And you know that you have buried that sweet person that you are on the inside. You have cut that person off, and you've become solemn and grim and angry. You may deflect. You may avoid. You may hide your real self. Here's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, you need to do some self-reflection. And you need to ask yourself, now, I came about it in the wrong way. I felt all this love and compassion and everything in my life, but somehow or other I didn't communicate that. And instead I communicated like the old sourpuss and anger and stuff. And I was so unaware that I couldn't figure out why people would ghost me, dump me out of their life, think I was just like a mean bad person, because I didn't feel like a mean bad person. And it wasn't until I started really looking at myself. Actually, it's helped me being on these videos because I actually see my face. I started asking myself, why don't people love me? Why do people not want to be close to me? Why do they run away from me? Why do they accuse me of things that I'm not really meaning to do? Well, like I said, it was the way I was acting. You need to identify what your emotional triggers are. Now, it could be anything. But if you have triggers that cause you to be angry, closed off, detached, passive aggressive, you need to find out what those triggers are. And you need to say, okay, and I'm always using myself for an example, but I'm my own science project. If you, like with me, if I feel abandonment coming on, if I feel somebody pulling away from me, like they're going to cut me off, and it's been especially bad when it was family, I would start getting scared. And then I was, self-propagating all of these problems anyway. But I would start feeling scared, and then I would start feeling hurt, and then the anger would set in. And it was like I couldn't control it. And then, after you go through that so many times, and you look around, there's hardly nobody left in your life, then you start getting smart. But anyway, figure out what your triggers are. Then you need the second step. That's one. Figure out what your triggers are. Number two, you need to be aware of how your reactions are affecting other people. So you may be hurting other people. You may be abandoning them, or you may be insulting them. You may be displaying very negative behavior, like you disapprove of them. Or you may them feel betrayed, like you're not loyal, you don't love them enough, or that you think that they're just not worthy of love. But so you need to be aware of how your attitudes, your actions, your words, if they're not sweet and kind, how are they affecting the people you're around? The third thing you need to do is practice mindfulness. Now, that is such a broad general term. I really don't like that term because it don't tell you a whole much. How do you be mindful? I'm being mindful. No. Being mindful is essentially sitting by yourself, or when you wake up and out of a deep sleep or something, and everybody still thinks you're asleep and you're laying there in the bed. Be mindful. Reflect on yourself. Don't be reflecting on other people. Reflect on yourself. Focus on you and not on the faults of others. But meditative prayer is really good. And to me, meditative prayer means that you're getting down, you're getting really quiet, and you're talking to God. But you're also, you may say, God, this may be your prayer. To me, this is what meditative prayer is. God, you see that I am not who I need to be, and I am aware of my faults and failures. So could you please help me to understand how to be a better person? But meditative prayer means that you just then stop for a little bit and you just get quiet before God, and you just allow Him to speak into your life, allow Him to speak into your heart. He may bring to your mind something you've done to somebody. This has happened to me so many times in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and I'd think, oh my Lord, I wasn't even aware that I did that, and I said this and I did that. And what would the result of this confrontation been had I been meek and sweet and kind and vulnerable? Self-defense can be one of the worst things in the world. And I would often realize I was in the wrong to start with. But another way that we can do mindfulness is to keep a gratitude journal. So you just get you a little notebook, and it might be just one of these little flippy notebooks like this, and you just write down what you can be grateful of. I'm grateful because I'm alive. And that is one way to practice mindfulness. Now, we do have to develop empathy. When someone is doing something that is triggering you or aggravating you in some way, don't just always just take it on the chin, or, take it on and just be aggravated about because they're doing something to aggravate you. Stop, take a step back, and say, why is this person acting this way? They may have just had a bad day at work, or they may have had a bad childhood, or they may have just been triggered with something themselves. If you know them and you realize that they're acting a little bit out of character, then you're going to be able to observe that better. But you need to try to be empathic. When you see somebody's having a bad day, or they're not feeling particularly well, and they may have even let you know, hey, I've got a headache, or I'm got, my guts are hurting, or, it could be any number of things. I'm really, really tired. And you just decide you're going to go info dump on them, or you're going to share a bunch of memes, or you're going to go tell them a joke. Well, they don't feel like laughing because they've got this misery going on. So we need to have empathy, and we need to try to understand people, and don't catch them off guard, and don't expect people to understand what you want from them. Don't desire something from someone without making it very, very clear and plain. With the best communication skills that you've got. And then if they fail, get mad at them because they failed. Because maybe they were trying their best and they just didn't really know what you wanted or what you needed. Make sure your communication is clear. You need to learn to develop empathy, cultivate understanding towards others, and put yourself in their shoes. And a lot of times you won't be less triggered when you do that. And so I'm going to have to hurry on here. But choose kindness. Kind words, cheerful demeanor, thankfulness, and the love languages. Words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving or giving gifts, quality time, appropriate touching. You know, it may just be shaking somebody's hand if you're just an acquaintance. Or it might be patting someone on the back if you're a co-worker. And if it's a partner or mate, you may hug them, family hug, however, appropriate touch. And you also have to consider if a person is a touch-me-not or if they're hypersensitive to touch, how you go about doing it. But appropriate touch. Respond with kindness instead of negativity. All of this stuff takes work. It's not easy to do if you're not used to doing it. We get in such a habit of being that person, just stay away from me because I don't trust you. We get used to being that kind of person, and it's hard to be vulnerable. Avoid scolding, anger, unsolicited advice, disapproval. If you go around disapproving of people all the time, it's a problem. Instead, listen and try to understand their perspective. It all takes awareness, and it takes courage, and it takes effort to do this. It's really difficult. It's not always easy to do because it's not your habit. It's not the habit that you've prepared. So you have to be, you have to purpose in your heart that you're going to be this way until you change your habits. Sometimes this might feel fake. Sometimes it may just feel like you're putting on the dog. Especially if you're like me and I have a tendency to be very serious. I come from a very serious family. My family is austere. They are very serious. A lot of times, foolishness of any kind is not tolerated. And simply what foolishness is, that's kind of a country lingo thing, but foolishness would be laughing and carrying on at the table, anything that was slapstick, anything that was vulgar or foolish or even bad language. My family tends to be very proprietous. Now, I have an old family. I'm 65 years old. By rights, I could have a grandmother that's still living. My grandma has been dead since 1975. She was born in 1889. My grandma. Not my great-grandma. My grandma. We have a very old family. My family descended from the Puritans. And my family have kept a lot of those old Puritan ideals. My mother could, by rights, because I'm 65, if she'd have had me when she was 20, she could still be living. My mother, instead, was born in 1928. That's a long time ago. The roaring 20s. So, we've kept a lot of those strict, stern attitudes. Now, your family may be totally different. But just relating to this is very difficult. It's very difficult because there's things that come along, especially because I'm highly sensitive anyway. Dark language, negative language, anything that seems like it's unproprietous can really set me off. And I have had to learn that I don't govern anybody else. I can't change anybody else. And it just because they have been raised in a different time and have a different set of issues, that doesn't mean that I'm better than them. Never did really think I was better than anybody else. But you just have to, if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all. That's what it is. Just let this stuff go. Let it go. And love them. You can love people out of so many things. You can love them out of pain, heartache. If there was more love going around, most of these situations wouldn't even happen. Love people. And if they're not somebody that you're really, really close to, just give them a lot of TLC, give them a lot of attention. You know, you may be somebody you're working with. Give them appropriate affection. Give them appropriate words of affirmation. And if it's somebody in your family and they come in a bad mood, well, rather than say, well, what's wrong with you? How come you're just in such a bad mood today? If you're mad about something, well, let me just give you something to be mad about, just like the grouchy tail bears. So anyway, don't do that. Be kind and compassionate. If somebody comes in their bad mood, say, I can see you're not feeling real good. Do you want to tell me about it? I care. I really care. I love you, and I care. Did something happen? Let's just sit down and talk. Can I make you a cup of tea? You want a glass of milk, some cookies? And let them talk. And you shut up. Well, if you'd have done this or if you'd have done that, ain't helping nothing. Well, I told you not to have nothing to do with that person. That ain't helping. Just shut up. Just sit there and listen. And if you let them talk enough, they'll probably figure it out themselves. And then give them words of affirmation. Instead of criticizing them or finding fault, give them words of affirmation and say, you know what? I see why you're so upset and I really care. I hope things are better tomorrow. I'm going to say a prayer for you. And if anything else comes along, I want you to tell me. I want you to know I'm always here. I've always got a listening ear. I've always got an open heart and an open mind and a hug if you need one. That's the way you deal with it. Stop trying to fix other people's problems, because you can't. You can't. People have to come to their own conclusions. They have to come to their own mindset. They have to solve their own problems. But you can be that listening ear and that shoulder to cry on, which is really all they need anyway. Okay. All you grouchy mom and dads that's got adult children, back off and leave them alone. I don't care if they're still living under your roof or you're still helping them with their bills in this economic climate. Everybody needs a little help. That doesn't mean they're less than you. You just lived in a more profitable time. You could buy a house and send them to school or to college because you were blessed. We're going to have to dig ourselves out of a financial hole, and these young people are struggling. They need help. But that doesn't mean that they're any less smart or anything than you. You just had a healthier climate. Economic climate, world climate. Stop grapping and trying to make them fit your scenario of perfect. Alright, I'm going to move on. This takes work. I am by no means perfect. I'm still working on this myself. But if you become aware that you've been a meanie, and you've been a meanie to protect yourself, because people have hurt you. People have tried to hurt you. People have hurt you. There are people that take pleasure in hurting you because probably they've been hurt. And then there's those people, well, you made my life miserable, so I'm just going to make your life miserable right back. I'm going to give you what you gave. Well, that ain't right. Forgive, and become aware. No, we can't forget. Those things are going to come up and sting us ever so often. But forgive and become aware. And then when those stings come up, just say, Lord, I forgive them anyway. It hurts. It still hurts. But I forgive them anyway. And don't be tit for tat. Tit for tat ain't no good for nobody. Remember not to be too hard on yourself. You shouldn't be hard on other people either. But don't be too hard on yourself. We're all at different levels of self-awareness, emotional awareness, and emotional intelligence. And this is one thing to remember. You can know something is right and wrong. Being emotionally intelligent is knowing right from wrong. Being emotionally aware and not falling into false behavior or bad behavior in the moment is of self-awareness or emotional awareness, and that's a little bit more difficult. Knowing to do right and always doing the right is two different things, but we need to remember not to be too hard on ourselves, and remember everybody's, we're all at different levels of awareness and growth. And you got to allow for people. Watch for those people that are trying to improve themselves. Watch for those people that, they may have done wrong, but they're praying and they're becoming sweeter and they're trying to become a better person. Don't hold grudges. Don't hold hard feelings towards somebody that you know is trying. Because sometimes, and I've had this happen to me, they're not going to forgive you no matter what you do. You could grovel on the ground, lay down on your face and beg for their forgiveness. Jesus will forgive you. But a lot of times they won't, because they're going to hold that grudge. But that's going to hurt them. Holding grudges will make you sick. Physically sick. Remember not to be too hard on yourself. Keep your spirit safe from harm. There are people that will hurt you and not have any remorse over it. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable with those that you know that you can. Because opening up to people that you know you're safe to be with and giving them a true account of what you've suffered. Don't embellish. Don't make it worse. And don't, alienate. Try to make somebody the villain and you were the victim. Don't alienate. Just be honest. Honesty is the most beautiful thing in the world. You'll not only tell the truth, but you'll have the right intent. And you'll be honest with yourself. Honesty is so important. If you realize you have done this, you've put up that hard facade to make yourself seem mean, bad, and tough so that you wouldn't get hurt. Work on keeping your spirit sweet. Work on bringing out that love. Most of the time we get hurt because we actually care. We get hurt because we really do love people. You really love somebody and they do something that's mean or hurtful or they come across in a bad way. It hurts you because you love them. And that proves that you got that love in your heart. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And sometimes even being vulnerable with people that are a little hard-nosed is good because it softens them. If somebody's being a little rough on you and you're just coming back at them with that defensive attitude, well, they're not going to see that they're hurting you. They just see you're fighting back. The meek shall inherit the earth, and blessed are the pure in spirit, for they shall see God. Study, I don't know where they're at right now, but if you can look it up on Google or something like that, look up the Beatitudes. It's all about your attitude. And these Beatitudes will give you the right attitude to be blessed in this world. So, I think that might be the Sermon on the Mount too. I'm not sure. But I'm not a teacher of the Bible. I'm just a person that shares her experiences. But keep your spirit safe from harm. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable, meek, and kind. Let the world see your inner angel. Let the world see your heart, your love. Did you ever see Mother Teresa? There's a picture of Mother Teresa standing next to Princess Diana, and I think she back come to Princess Diana's waist. Of course, the princess was tall, but Mother Teresa was so tiny. And she'd go out on those streets and she'd find those little orphan babies or those hungry people, and she'd just drag them right back to the monastery or the, you know, whatever. And for years, you know, I've thought, I wish I could have a heart like Mother Teresa. I'm sure that there was times she had to stand up, you know. That was my water reminder. I'm sure that there was times she had to stand up and be, you know, tough and strong. You can't run something like that. But having a loving, caring, kind heart, you can't just give out. You can't just let people take advantage. I understand that. You got to have healthy boundaries. But at least you can have a desire of love and kindness and sweetness. Love, joy, and peace, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance, long-suffering. The old saying would just be good. Just try to be good. It seems like in this day and age people are just trying to be bad. They think bad's going to protect them, but it's not. Being bad and mad and angry and fighting back is not the answer. So let's create a heart of love, a family of love, and a world of love. Alrighty then. I would appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and comment. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video. And definitely introduce yourself, because I'd like to know who you are. I'd like to know a little bit. If you've commented before, I thank you so much for that. I appreciate you taking part. And I would also like for you to continue to comment, because the more I see your name pop up in those little comment things, the more I'm going to understand, hey, I remember that person. But introduce yourself and share whatever you feel comfortable sharing. And let's create a community of highly sensitive people of all kinds. And let's work towards making this world a place of love and unity and kindness. All right. Remember, you can't change the world. You can't change nobody else, but you can change yourself. Now, this means I love all my children, and I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video. Hugs. Send in my hugs. Bye-bye.